Hey everyone, welcome back to the Match Grade Podcast. This is actually a kind of a special one. I've got another individual who I would consider one of my mentors from my early days of getting into combative pistolry. So on this episode, we have Greg Hamilton. He is a U.S. Army 3rd Ranger Battalion and Special Forces veteran. In his role, he conducted specialized long-range reconnaissance, surveillance, and target interdiction missions in support of regimental operations. That's basically work that required some extreme precision, independence, and operational security. So kind of like secret squirrel stuff, right? So Greg's history here stateside, he founded Insights Training Center, one of the earliest companies that I trained with back in 1990. In the last 35 years, he figures they've trained well over 30,000 students in firearms and tactics. I'm actually one of those clients, as I said. I think one of my first courses with them was in probably 1999, 2000, somewhere around in there. But I've trained with Greg and quite a few of the other Insights instructors over the years. And I remember just walking away with a vast amount of experience, knowledge, and skill that I picked up from them. So it was a pretty good time. So Greg is a 2-time national champion and 6-time top 5 finisher at the National Tactical Invitational, or NTI as they refer to it. That was an event that they ran all over the place, and it was for practitioners of our craft to really put things to work. They had scenarios. It was pretty cool. You know, maybe Greg and I will talk about this in the episode. His shooting career actually began at the Mid-South Institute of Self-Defense Shooting, where he worked under a guy named John Shaw. This guy's a legend in the shooting industry. He worked as an instructor teaching U.S. military special operations guys modern pistol combative shooting. He also trained extensively under Jeff Cooper at Gunsight and went on to serve as a Gunsight instructor for 6 years. Greg is certified by the U.S. Army. Here's a list. This is a long list here. He's certified by the U.S. Army as a close quarters combat instructor, anti-terrorism instructor. He's certified by the National Law Enforcement Training Center as a handgun retention instructor, and by the Washington State Criminal Justice Training Commission as a firearms instructor. Greg is named both Master Instructor and Master Tactician by the American Tactical Shooters Association. Greg is taught and trained at leading facilities, including Gunsight, as I mentioned earlier, Mid-South, Defense DTI, Defensive Training International, American Pistol Institute, Lethal Force Institute, Chapman Academy, H&K's International Training Division, that's a mouthful, ITC, Thunder Ranch, and I'm going to screw it up, it's Yavapai Firearms Academy. I just guessed at it, guys, so if I got it wrong, don't hang me up. Greg is also certified by the U.S. Army as a close quarters combat instructor and anti-terrorism instructor. This guy, he's done a lot. As I said before, I've learned a lot from him, and I consider him one of my primary mentors of when I started all this combative and defensive pistol craft. So, Greg, welcome to the podcast.
Hello.
So, everybody, Greg Hamilton, I'm not going to suck up to him a lot, but, a mentor of mine. I learned a lot from him in my formative years as shooter, and him in the Insights cadre, as I said in the intro. And Greg kind of hit me up and said, yo, dude, let's do a podcast. And I'm like, what the hell not? Let's do it. So here we are. Greg, give him a little about you. I kind of went through the bullet points on your intro, but, anything else you want to share and we'll get rolling.
Well, I don't know what you said, but I mean, basic deal is been teaching shooting for 35 years. And concurrently, most of that time I was in Reserve and National Guard Special Forces. Obviously competed a little bit back in the day, did the National Tactical Invitational a ton. Mm-hmm. So my background is special operations, military, competition, and teaching. And of course I trained everywhere, back in the day, back in the 90s, I was quite the training addict. So that's basics.
I think we've all had our addiction phase, and then we just kind of level it out and manage it after a while.
Sure. Yeah. A lot of reasons, for me, a lot of it was to see other people teach more than to go shoot. I got really lucky in that the first real professional firearms instruction I had was from John Shaw at Mid-South Institute of Self-Defense Shooting. And so like my competency as a shooter was already extremely high by the time I went and trained with other people, right? I mean, I still learned a ton about self-defense shooting, about self-defense gun handling, but my marksmanship, my speed and accuracy, like, were already pretty set, right? So I got real lucky in that, real lucky. But there was a ton to learn from these other guys about self-defense, because coming out of military special operations, you've probably seen these guys. They can shoot good. Do they know anything about when you should shoot?
do
they know anything about how not to shoot? Right. And so
that
was what my education ended up being significantly about, and how to teach, of course, watching these guys that have taught tens of thousands of people.
Cool. So speaking of, like training and everything, so you sent me a link that really intrigued me and got me curious. The online GDH, or General Defensive Handgun format. That, I can guarantee you, I already know that it probably took a lot to put together. And as you said, we were just talking, you're still working on some things, but talk to me about that. Tell us the impetus, and, what got it started and where you want it to go.
Well, I've wanted to do something like it for a long time. I just didn't have the people to do it with. Especially when you're learning how to film the stuff while you're filming it. That's obviously an expensive way to learn, right? And so, if you're paying people to film you, teaching in front of camera is nothing like teaching in front of live people. Curriculum design even is probably different. All these things. And so it took meeting the right people that had enough trust in me that they wanted to go for it, even though it was going to take forever. And it took forever. We started it a year ago. So, and we were really bad at it to start with. So it's just, getting all the cameras set up and, like, knowing how to act in front of the camera and it just took forever. Now we can nail it. We can set up cameras really fast. I can present correctly in front of the camera, right? All that stuff. But yeah, I've been wanting to do something like this for a long, long time. And, just recently, a couple guys that have been working with me here for quite a while are also the kind of guys that just wanted to do this, and they're into tech. They're very, very good with technology. And so they're the kind of guys that can teach themselves a new technology subject very, very easily. And so we were all going through that process of figuring out how to do it. They're figuring out how to film. They're figuring out how to edit, all these things simultaneously with me figuring out how to present this material we've been presenting forever, but present it online. So yeah, so that's what happened. As far as, like, I've wanted to do it forever, because this will be strange, but I've seen three things that convinced me this was possible. You're probably familiar with Starting Strength, right? Mark Ripeto's Starting Strength.
Mm-hmm. I've heard about it.
Yeah. So I was years ago this is a long time ago in Iraq. So that's like 13 years ago. I had a bunch of downtime and my own internet connection, and I spent a long time on his forums. And it was the first time I had ever seen internet forums that functioned. And I realized, and what I mean by functioned is that the quality, the material, the passion for helping each other, all these things, and minus all of the problems you normally see on the internet. And the reason I realized is because lifting is objective. You either push the weight or you don't.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, you can either squat, deadlift, or bench press, or you can't. And so when people would ask a question on the Starting Strength forums, you were expected to answer with Mark Ripeto's Starting Strength doctrine. And also, you were expected to not give answers if you couldn't lift. So if people came out of nowhere and gave answers to someone's question, one of the first things somebody would say is, "What do you lift?" They'd question the person posting, "What do you lift?" And if the person
that's the qualifier right there.
Yeah, if the person posted their lifts and people didn't believe them, they'd say, "Post video." So it's proof, like, and then even if they could lift, they would still get dogpiled if they were giving advice that was outside of the doctrine, because this isn't the open internet. This is Starting Strength forums. We're here to represent a certain thing. Does that make sense? So, well, I realized, much of shooting is obviously objective. We have speed and accuracy standards. right?
Yep. And either you do
So
it or you don't.
you either do it or you don't. You can either do it or you can't do it. And post a damn video, show us you can do it. Like in the modern era, it's not hard to just make a damn video of yourself. So we don't have to put up with all these internet experts that actually can't perform. And then I realized, if you build your forums correctly, people will help each other because people are invested. And so like our forums for the class are not open to the public. They're open to anybody that has taken the class or is in the class. And so you're going to get, when you post to the forums, if you post a video of yourself doing a drill and say, hey, what do you think? You're going to be getting forum participation of people in the class with you, right? That have done the same training, not just anybody that's like, well, I saw an Instagram video and I think you should do it this way, right? That's not, you have a real group of people that are helping each other. So I realized that with objective scoring, obviously, that we have with shooting, that we could quite possibly produce forums that were actually helpful, right? That actually had a community that could help each other. Because that's the big deal. If you're going to teach yourself, you need feedback, right? You have to have feedback. And what better way than a whole bunch of people going through the process that you've gone through that are passionate about helping each other? That seems like the right thing. So forums was one. The second one is Gracie Academy proved that you can learn things online.
Yeah.
They have proven it, that they have people all over the world that are actually learning jiu-jitsu online. Now you have to practice with partners, but that's the thing. Like you have to really do it, but the videos are there. And something like jiu-jitsu is pretty simple. When you get in the move with your partner and he's not feeling a damn thing, you're not doing it right. You know what I mean? Like
objective.
Yeah. So you adjust it until your partner goes, oh yeah, that's working.
Yeah.
Right.
Got it.
So it's one of those things you can teach yourself. I mean, the guys that invented it taught themselves, right? Like somebody, you know what I mean? Like somebody taught themselves to start with. Somebody figured out an arm bar and said, oh God, this works, so why can't you learn it on your own? Well, shooting, you can learn on your own. We know you can learn shooting on your own. People have been teaching themselves to be great shooters without instruction since the beginning of time. Now, we hope that instruction massively increases the learning curve, right? That like you get a whole lot more out of it. And of course, the people that taught themselves to be great shooters by themselves were the kind of people that could do that. Not everyone is that person, right? Most people need a structure, right? Most people need a lesson plan. Most people need to know step by step what to do. And so that was two of the things. And then what happened is, you probably remember that we were right in the middle of like the COVID thing when no one knew what it was going to turn into. Like the first month or two, and it was chaos. Of course, you guys in New York lived through more chaos than a lot of the rest of the country in New York City and stuff. I know that. But in my case, my wife worked at the first hospital that had the first COVID patient, and she supposedly was the first healthcare worker to get it. So what happened is I was then having to this is that first couple weeks when nobody knows what's going on. Right. And so I had a general defensive handgun class going on and I decided not to go. Right. I'm like, well, I shouldn't go. Right. If my wife's sitting here with COVID, we don't know what's going on. Right. And so I did a Zoom to the class. I had all my coaches there and I still taught the whole class by video. Okay. And I was really, really worried it wasn't going to work well. But we had tons of coaches there to help. So everybody was getting all their hands on. But what I ended up realizing very, very quickly is that I was probably able to teach better because they could watch my hands huge on a screen from whatever angle I wanted them to watch from without anybody in their way. When you're teaching and you're trying to show all these finesse moves, people are always standing all in each other's way. They're on the wrong side of you. You're trying to get everybody to move around and look at it from a certain angle. Yeah. I realized, well, on video, I can show them from every angle. I can point the gun right at them. I can, you know what I mean? I can do every angle possible. And I talked to people a year or two later that had been to that general defensive handgun class, and they thought it was great. Wow. So I'm like, okay, well, these three things are telling me we got to do this. Right. Okay. So that's kind of where it came from. I'm like, okay, online education does in fact work. It has to be structured correctly. functioning forums can work. I think that's hugely important that people have a community and have people helping them and be able to post video and all this stuff. Like that's more important than just a curriculum. Like the curriculum by itself is one thing, having the support structure is the other thing, right?
Yeah,
And then
the backup.
We can show every single angle. Like we can show it a million times. So that's what we did. We've got already 190 lessons broken out into 190 lessons over 14 hours of video already. That's not even counting like we're adding more and also extra credit kind of stuff. So it's like, oh, here's a video. We got some extra credit. Like here's a video of Jeff Cooper giving his original mental conditioning lecture. So let's talk about that. Yeah, go remember Surviving Edged Weapons, the old 80s, 90s.
Oh, good Lord. I remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like we have a link to that video and we're going to like, okay, because it's still useful to have watched. There isn't much about surviving edged weapons. In surviving edged weapons, it's mostly how to die from edged weapons, but it's an educational video. It's one of those things that's kind of extra credit that is also goes in your training file for court, things like that. We don't want to do a ton of things just for court. But if we're learning and it helps in court, why wouldn't we do that? Like, we want education that also is subpoenable. And so we're going to have a lot of extra credit stuff like that where, this book or this video, and then we have like a written test on that material, right? Well, that's part of your training file right there. So we've got the extra credit stuff also, but we'll be continuously adding, especially as the participation in the course grows and people are asking, questions, we'll just keep adding video based on those questions, right? So that's where we're at right now.
Cool. Yeah, as soon as, I'm in the middle of a project of moving my classroom to a new location, but as soon as I'm done with that, I'm diving in. I want to check it out because I want to see, because I've lost count of the many times I've taken it between you and Mike and John and, I forgot who else I've brought out here or gone insane, but I want to see where it differs.
Sure.
And I want to see, okay, does this, from my prior knowledge, what will this enhance or what will this differ? So I'm very curious about it.
Good.
Which is probably dangerous, but we'll find out what happens.
Oh yeah, we want you to watch it. I need, there's when I sent it out to experienced people mostly that I knew, hey, judge this. But the reality is, who do we really want to judge the product? A bunch of guys that already know how to do everything. We want a bunch of people that have never done anything to judge it, right? And so one of my friends gave it to a buddy of his who doesn't know anything. And that was some of the best feedback I got because the guy was so excited. Like he did, he was 25% of it. My buddy told me that every time they met at like the brew pub, the guy couldn't quit talking about the class. So I'm like, all right, we got a believer. It's working for someone that's never done anything. So that's
another one hooked.
Yeah. But of course, having guys like you watch it, you're going to pick up, a lot of stuff too. And you're going to pick up technical things.
Yeah.
I really do hope that it eventually actually, besides the fact we'll put all of our other curriculum online too, all of the more advanced stuff, turning something like this into an instructor level course, right? That's just, you just add on the next piece, which is now let's go through, here's all the stuff that the person needs to learn. Now, how would you present all that? How would you coach all that? How would you teach all that? So that could be the next step also. We'll see. Where that goes. We got a lot on our plate.
So that might interest me greatly too, just to, be able to deliver content a little differently or, maybe maybe this is like a new wave. Maybe this will be like a change in evolution on how things are taught.
I think eventually it's going to be, I think we're going to see, look at everything that's already changed in the last 10 years, how much is it going to change in 10 more years? And, could we eventually be teaching classes that everybody's already done a whole online curriculum and then they're showing up just to do, a live fire version of the class, right? And wouldn't that be sweet to teach people that have already done their own homework, right?
It'd be so easy.
It'd be wonderful because now you're the big picture stuff is already taken care of. And now you're able to dive right into like the little bitty pieces that you would really like to be able to teach people. Right. There's so much finesse that we would like to be able to teach people, but they're overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Right? And how many people get overwhelmed at some spot in one of our classes? And then the reality is they're just playing catch up for the whole rest of the class. Right. Because it wasn't going at the speed they could learn. And so now we have the ability that a person can learn at any speed they want. Right. And when they get
Yeah, they
stuck,
can pause the video and work on that thing for 20 minutes if they
yeah,
wanted to.
yeah, when they get stuck, they can just stay there. They don't
Yeah.
have to go on to the next piece, right?
I'll
And
come back
people
to
that,
it next week.
yeah, people that can learn fast can learn fast, right?
Yeah.
And people that are going to learn slower, are, which we know everybody's kind of bell curve distribution, right? There's going to be slow people and fast people. There's nothing wrong with that. But in a live fire class, it's very difficult for us to deal with, right?
Right.
So I'm thinking about that too. Like, how can we change that a bit? I have some ideas. The problem is like there's physical answers and then there's psychological answers. What I mean by that is like if you just took everybody that was struggling and put their target closer, they would be able to do something and be successful. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Right.
And so then everybody could kind of be working on the same marksmanship standards, even though they're at different distances from the target.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Right. The problem is those people would be psychologically devastated by standing in front of a target that's close to them when everybody else's target is farther away. Does that make sense? They actually like, that wouldn't work either, because then people would be all mopey that their target, that they are shooting at a 3-yard target and everybody else is shooting at a 7-yard target. So
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that exactly, but when they're doing it on their own at home with online course, we've already set the standards, which the standards we're setting, we are right out of learning psychology, which is during practice, when you're trying to learn, you need to be at about an 80% success rate, but a 20% failure rate. So if your standard is an 8-inch circle and you're pushing yourself to try to learn, you should be missing it 20% of the time.
Okay. Yep.
Right?
Understandable.
And then there's a consolidation phase when you're slowing down enough that you're 100% successful. Right. And that, you consolidate your material. You start your kind of training regime with this. This is the speed I can do things at. Right. And then we want to experiment during the main portion of our training time. And that's where we allow ourselves 20% failure. And then I would reconsolidate at the end. Right. Like, what can I actually do? What can I actually, because we're defensive shooters. We have to walk out on the street able to hit our target.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we don't have any excuses.
No, a competitive shooter can go through a long process of not being able to hit the target.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. He can just like go crazy, go fast. He can crash and burn speed, which we don't want to do much as self-defense shooters, because we have liabilities, right? We have responsibilities, right? Like, but a competitive shooter, he can just crash and burn all the time until it finally works. Right. And, but we're a little different. So 80%. So what I'm getting at there with that standard, well, if you're good enough that you can practice at an 8-inch dot at 7 yards and you can achieve 80% success rate during your training, awesome. But if you can't, move the target closer.
Yeah.
Right. And get to the point where, because we know that a student needs to feel successful, not just be successful. They need to feel successful. Right. And so when I have a student that's on the 7-yard line with everyone else on the 7-yard line, and they're missing 70% of the time, they are not doing well psychologically. Right. It's going to be very hard to fix them because they're already psychologically crushed by the failure rate. Right. If they could be mostly successful, even at closer range, I think we'd get farther ahead sooner.
Well, you build up we'll call it the ego, but you build up the psychological win for them, and then they're back in learning mode.
They're motivated.
Yeah.
Like, right. They're motivated. They're happy. And they're building on success, right? Even if that success isn't much, it's way better than nothing.
It's better than
right. Yeah, because we know we can see those people kind of psychologically crash and burn in class when they just can't get it, So with an online class, you can get it. You can just say, okay, look, I need to do this at 5 yards for a while, right? And once I can get to the point where I can hit all the time at 5 yards, well, then I can go to 6 and see what happens, right? And I can eventually get there. It just might take that person a couple extra range sessions.
Yeah.
And a couple hundred extra more rounds. But big deal in the whole scheme of things, big deal. They're learning, they're succeeding, they're moving forward. Yeah.
So it's interesting because I've done that for some of the drills that I want to succeed at myself. Like there's one of them where it's basically a 3x5 card, draw fire 2 shots in 2 seconds from concealment, right? a pretty good standard with a tight expectation. And if I put it out at 7 yards or 20 feet, 21 feet or whatever, I'm probably at about, well, up until recently, I was probably about 40 to 50%. All right. And it was either I was overtime or I missed one, but I usually hit one of them. So what I did is I just brought it back in a little bit and just started really drilling it because it's the same mechanics, same motor skills, just a little bit easier to achieve. And then I pushed it back out every so often. And I think the last run I did, I got 80% out of it. Mm-hmm. And, I ran it 10 times and I nailed it either, obviously on time and on the 3x5, 8 out of 10. And the two misses were maybe an inch or so off. So it wasn't that much. But I kind of did that for myself because I made it, all right, let's get the win, let's get the practice. And then now we test it back again and then come back. And so I went back and forth a bunch of times. So, I kind of like that idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we need to win more often right now.
Yeah.
Once you know how to shoot, like integrating, like missing more is okay because you're not defining yourself by your misses. You're not getting psychologically crushed. You're just like, shit happens, right? Like sometimes I'm going to burn up. Like it's no big deal. But when
that never happens with good shooters. Come on.
Yeah, when you're brand new, you just don't really want that. You want to stay in that success window. You're always moving forward a little bit later. And especially when you're brand new, you don't want to be unsafe, right? So we got to slow down. When you're a new shooter, we just want to mechanically get everything correct, get our wins in, slowly build up our confidence and our abilities, right? And later we can do all kinds of fancy things, obviously. We got to build a foundation first.
Throw some gas on the fire and see what happens.
Yeah, but so what you did is exactly right. You bring it in, you get lots of success, you move it out a little bit. And if you move it out at the right rate, you don't even notice you're moving it out.
Yeah.
Right. Like I did this once at Fairfax County, Virginia. They had the turning target system and, the really nice one, and you could set the timer to turn the targets. Right. So you have electronic timer plugged into it. And so I set a timer at like 2 seconds and all the cops are going to draw and shoot, in 2 seconds. I made it really easy to start with. That's another thing I think is really important is like, you can practice something. Let's say you're trying to get a 1.5 second draw. There's nothing wrong with practicing 3 second draws, like on the timer, like really set a par set and just do it slow and perfect and only try to do it at exactly 3 seconds. Right. And then cut the time down and then cut the time down. So what I did with these guys without them knowing it is I sent the timer on like 2 seconds, really easy. And I just had them doing draws over and over and over and over. And I just kept making the target, right? Changing the time it was going to be exposed a little bit, whatever the timer was capable of. I don't know. I think it was capable of 10th of a second changes.
Okay. Yeah.
Which, we'd prefer to do even better than that. But, you take a shooter from a 2 second draw down to a 1.4 second draw. But if you do that over the course of like 30 minutes, they don't even know what's happened. They feel like they're still doing the exact same draw they were doing at the start.
Oh yeah. Just every time they do a rep, they get the feedback and the loops, the myelination's happening, and then they just get better. And like you said, they're not even realizing that it's getting better.
Yep.
Until you show them the timer at the end and go, hey guys, look what you were just doing.
Yep, exactly. I noticed this at Gunsight when we run big lines of people down at Gunsight. I taught there in the 90s. Is that I just kind of noticed that the same percentage of people would be hyper successful and hyper unsuccessful in class, regardless of the standards you had in class. And so the problem was like lowering the standards to try to bring up the bottom percentage didn't work because however much you lowered the standards, there was certain people that were just going to fall off the bottom.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
There's always the low performers no matter what you do.
Yeah. And so they just kind of adapt and they're okay being at that spot. And what I found worked better in that era was raising the standards, drug the bottom forward.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. You're dragging them with you versus pushing from the rear is what I call it.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So when you're lowering the standards, you feel like you're pushing from the rear. And when you're raising the standards, you're dragging from the front. right? And
Yeah.
I found that most people that were having performance issues had better performance the more I put the standards up for them, right? Now, realistic. They had to be realistic, somewhat realistic, right?
Yeah.
You know, okay, you're going to fail at a 1.5 second draw stroke when you're new, but you got 1.6 seconds. That's pretty damn good. Like you should be,
All right.
you know what I mean? You should be pretty happy. You wouldn't have got that if you weren't trying for the 1.5 sometimes. So there's a
Yeah.
balance. Sometimes you want to push people, sometimes you don't. But in online, in this going back to the online stuff, the person gets to decide. They get to look at their target, they get to judge their target, grade their target. They get to decide, am I ready to go to the next session or not? Should I do this session again? Should I push the distance? Should I bring it back? Like there's this feedback that they get to do.
Yeah. That again, it does sounds like it's going to be good. So, I really, I'm going to dig into it. I might share it with Wendy, and we'll go to the range and do some work on stuff. And worst case scenario, we're going to tune up a little better. Sure. Best case scenario, we're probably going to discover something we just hadn't thought about in years.
Yeah, when you go back to the basics, that's what happens.
Yeah. Right? I remember, telling guys, because we talk about, repeating classes as often as you can. And I remember using the GDH, between going and hosting. And I swear I've probably hosted the GDH about a dozen times. And I've been there for all of them. And every single time when I got a chance to step on the line and get some rounds down range, I was like, okay, I got something tweaked up here. And it worked a little better. So there's no lost value in it. So that's going to be cool. So the other thing that would be cool to talk about is that course description you sent me about a month or so ago.
Oh, sure.
That I remember, I think you and I were talking about it maybe a couple years ago. I don't know if you were developing it or that was in the infancy of the idea, but this urban surveillance operations course. I'll tell you, when you sent it to me, I looked at it, you sent me the full write-up, and I sent it out to I've got a master training group of about 30 people. And I sent it out to them, and they were like, who, what, when are we doing this? What is this? What, how, what, when, now? They're junkies. They're my junkies. Sure. And I said, well, we'll talk about how we can do this, but remember, we're coming into the last quarter of the year, and to get this to work, might have a little scheduling issue, but I said we will put it together. So give me and everybody watching some backing on that one. Tell us about that one. Sure.
So when I went back in Special Forces, National Guard after September 11th, I within 3 years, I think 3 years, or maybe it took 5 years, I blew up both knees and had a hernia repair. And I learned very quickly, this can be a little bit of a long answer to your question. I learned very quickly I just couldn't do physically the main job anymore, right? The assaulting, the carrying 1 million pounds across uneven terrain in the middle of the night. I could pull it off. I could pull off a mission and then I'd be destroyed. Right. And so I was like, okay, this isn't really working. And I got really lucky. I got sent to Special Forces has a few levels of things, and we have a human intelligence collection. And so I went to our mid-level human intelligence class and found myself walking around downtown in a suit and a laptop bag with a Starbucks coffee cup, like getting dates with people. And I'm like, oh, this is what I should be doing. This is easy. talking with people, and so I got into that, and that quickly led me to surveillance work. And I went on a program over to England and worked with the regiments over there who are the experts at this kind of stuff. And then from there, got into technical surveillance, ended up working in Iraq for 3 years, running half the country's technical surveillance program. Also, I left my normal Special Forces unit. I was concurrently in 2 units for a while because one, they could just task you. And I did surveillance and surveillance instruction inside the United States for exercise support and various reasons. We weren't operating inside the United States. Like it's training, but it's out. Does that make sense? Like we're doing training, large scale training operations. And I ran a lot of surveillance operations and taught a lot in that. And so that was my last 8 years or so in special forces, was all human intelligence and surveillance. I wanted to have I think that surveillance is a valuable thing for everyone that is interested in self-defense to know to some degree. Now, do they really need to know it at the level that we're teaching it in the class? Probably not. Who knows what's going to happen in the world, though, and who knows when it would come in handy either. So we started teaching our Recondo program, and that's a 5-day in the woods, kind of a combination Robin Sage and Ranger School / Vietnam Recondo. I don't want to we won't go into too much depth in that, but realize we want to teach all these skills. We want to teach people teamwork, leadership, followership, all these various things. So we started doing the Recondo class, and we needed to put it inside of an umbrella of a exercise, like the idea of what overall is happening that would cause you to be doing this. The military, whenever we're doing an exercise, we have an enemy, right? We have like what's going on, right?
Okay.
And so I'm like, well, Robin Sage is an example in Special Forces School. You have Pineland, and Pineland is like North Carolina, South Carolina, like this whole area, and like you have this fake country. You do it in Ranger School too. Florida is some other country, and you're operating in this other country. And so we just basically made the Red Dawn scenario. We figured this would be the perfect scenario, is that for some reason, the United States has somehow been invaded by the Chinese and the Russians and the evil bad guys, whoever they are. And somehow you're a guerrilla force that is now operating inside of this environment, right? And so what I wanted to produce is the idea that you are operating, you're trying to operate without being detected by a first world government, right? A first world capability, right? That would be the ultimate goal. If you could operate without being discovered by someone with first world capabilities, you're as good as it's going to get. Does that make sense, right? So when I first started teaching surveillance, we kind of had that idea that, oh, this is Red Dawn. Now your urban environment, right? That's the overall idea. You're in this urban environment. You need to impose surveillance for whatever reasons. But as it's grown, I've tried to make it more realistic for self-defense, meaning that we're putting more counter surveillance into it. And teaching people how to notice if they're being followed versus just following people. The best way to learn counter surveillance, though, is to learn surveillance. Absolutely, positively the best way. And only through trial and error will you learn. You have to burn yourself by making a mistake.
Okay, yep.
That makes sense. You've got to make the mistake, because the moment you make that mistake and get burned hard, in training, of course, you will spot another person making that same stupid mistake in a millisecond.
Yeah, right.
Right. You'll look over at this car parked the wrong way, and you'll be, oh, I know what you're doing.
Yeah,
right.
Because I did that.
Because I did that exact thing, and it's still burned into my memory. And so we really use that a lot. It's really fast taught. And so, so we're doing surveillance and counter surveillance. Yes, it kind of has a scenario where, we don't want to get caught by whoever the evil bad guy is that we're trying not to get caught by. I'm putting a little less emphasis on that now. And why is this useful? Obviously, well, I'll tell you, our very first students here in Seattle all went to a church that was in that whole Chop Chaz thing in Seattle. Remember that crazy thing?
Yeah.
And so their church was like co-located in that. And they're like, well, we want to know how to watch people that are watching us, right? And we want to know how to spot this stuff. And we want to know how to follow people if we need to. If we decide someone's a bad person, there's nothing wrong with imposing some amount of surveillance on that person, right? Like you might need to do that. And we've already had people use it for a variety of reasons. Somebody's teenage daughter was hanging out with the wrong dude. And so, boom, next thing you know, that guy gets arrested because you put surveillance on him and you see what he's really doing and you call the police at the right times, right?
Yeah.
Or you could have, spousal, you could have divorce things going on. You could have whatever's going on. But what we've actually got now in the Seattle area is a couple hundred surveillance operators that can all just get on the group chat and say, hey, who can do something Thursday night? And you could go take care of things. No, when I say take care of things, we're just, once again, like, you got a teenage kid issue, you got a spouse issue, you got a business partner issue, whatever. You can go run a surveillance team and see what happens and find something out, right? Or you got criminal neighbors. We've had people that, druggies move in next door, right? Like that stuff happens, right? And if you just wait for the police to do their thing, you could be waiting a long time, but you could add a little extra to it safely, right?
Yeah.
So
this is kind of reminiscent. I don't. You're gonna have to remind me of the title of the course, but I
Mhm.
remember coming out to Seattle a couple times,
Mhm.
and I remember one field trip we went down to Pioneer Square,
Oh yeah, that was in the
and we're
street
standing on
vehicle
top of the parking
tactics.
garage.
Yeah. That was street and vehicle tactics class.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. We were that. Unfortunately, we can't do that field trip anymore, only because like all the locations that we used to know about. So we used to take people on a walk of actual crimes.
Yeah.
Right. This is the parking garage that this carjacking almost happened in. This is the ATM where those places, it's all changed so much now that we don't have like the real stories anymore. Right.
Yeah.
But you probably remember that. It was probably pretty fun. And we probably got surveilled. As we walked around, did we acquire a following of criminals? Do you remember that?
I wouldn't doubt it.
That's what usually happens when we used to do that field trip. Within an hour, we'd have up to a dozen people watching us from a block away and following us around because we're in their operational environment.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's important for criminals to know who's in their operational environment,
Well,
right?
yeah, they know the players.
Yeah, they want to know what's up, right? And
Yeah.
we look like whatever, the fuck police academy field trip or some crap, right? And so they want to know what's up, right? Now they're
Might as
not.
well have hats on that say we're
Yeah, we're not dangerous to them, and not dangerous to us because they're not going to approach, but they need to know
yeah,
what's going on, right?
we're an
And so,
anomaly.
yeah, the surveillance program, we're teaching old school surveillance. Uh, we use radios. We're trying not to use phone. We do use phones to make sure that we don't lose you for the next 3 hours of class.
Right.
But we're not using them as the primary method of communication. We use low wattage radios because they're very hard to direction find. They don't have a very big bubble. We're using paper maps. Like we start you from the old school way of doing it because I really believe if you learn the old ways of doing things, it's easy to add technology. But if you start with technology, you never actually learn anything. So
Right.
we start you the old way. It's really fun. I can teach what would have taken would have took me 5-6 days to teach in the government. I can do in 2 days because I just do it evolution. We don't sit there with whiteboards. We just go do it. We
Yeah.
literally just the first morning we'll talk for 30 minutes and then we're in the cars and you're learning to do it while we do it. Right. And you're screwing everything up, of course, and you're making all the wrong calls on the radio and but big deal. It all sorts itself out very quickly and people will like evolutionarily like evolve very, very quickly if we just put them right in the pool and there's no danger. Right. There's no
Right.
actual danger. It's not on the gun range where if we push you too far, you shoot yourself. Right. Like it's no problem. The students are riding two up, meaning there's two people in a vehicle. So you're not trying to run maps, run radios, and drive your car at the same time. So you're not going to kill yourself, right? Like the driver can focus on driving. And yeah, that's required. It's just unsafe. But guys will come back their second or third time and have evolved all the way to being a one up, meaning now they are running maps, radios, and driving at the same time, which is the end goal. The end goal would you can do everything, but you don't want to try to start that way. You're just going to kill somebody accidentally. So yeah, we do that. It's really fun. You get right out there and you get doing it. And it's when we come out and do it, we'll do a podcast again after you do it.
Okay.
And you tell me how much brain fuel you went through in those 3 days, because seriously, your brain will be you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I was thinking that fast for 3 days. Like it is massive. And it's awesomely fun. I try to tell guys it's awesomely fun because this is what you were designed to do, which is go out with a group of dudes and hunt.
Yeah, I like it. I don't remember if you've met Matt, who's my training manager, Matt Underwood. He's done some insights, but mostly here. You might have done them. He's on board full time with me now for my as my training manager. I've grown, Greg. I got like 20 instructors now. It's crazy.
Yeah,
awesome. But when I shared this with him, he wrote, because he does some man tracking stuff with a guy named Craig Caudle of Nature Reliance School. And this is right up his alley.
Sure.
Yeah, he's prepared for stuff like this. And this dovetails right where he wants. So he was the first one to say, let's do this now. He goes, can Greg get here this weekend?
It's awesome team building. You'll build a cadre of people that can go do things, and you can do more than just this thing. That's the thing, is like, once you learn to communicate on the radio, work your car, work all this, you can then overlay that into other subjects, of course. Oh, yeah. But you're tight. You've learned how to be tight, because there's nothing tighter than vehicular surveillance, man. It's all happening so fast. Cars got to move to the right places. Everybody's like predicting what their buddy's going to do. Everybody's covering a hole, right? It's one of these things where everybody has to be high agency, high assertiveness. You've got to want to hunt. You've got to, you want to be the main hunter. It's really cool psychology, because when you're out there with a team, you want to be the dude behind the dude, right? You want to be the guy that's running everything, right?
Yeah. It's an ego thing. It's like, I'm on there. I got it.
Yeah. But you also have to check your ego, because if a buddy of yours is in a better spot to take that spot, you should be letting him do it.
Right.
Right. Yeah. And it should be seamless. There shouldn't be an argument over who's got the guy right now. Right. You know what I mean? So you have this like huge predatory thing going on where you're like, you want to be the dude, but then you're also like being a calm pro and just handing it off.
Yeah.
Just hand it off the moment it should be handed off. You hand it off, and then you take it the moment you can take it. And you're always fighting to be in position to be the guy that can take it, but not fighting so hard that you're like running over other people. Like, everyone has their chance. Everybody's has their appropriate moment, So it's really fun psychologically.
I'm going to be, I'll get working on the gang. And then we'll definitely set something up, because this will be good. And then I'm envisioning a couple trips.
Oh yeah. You'll definitely want to do it more
to build up, because you gave me like, there's kind of a limit, but we can do a couple of these.
Absolutely. And that's what you want. You want to develop a core of people that have give me an example. So a buddy of mine got his car stolen out of his driveway. Okay. So he gets his car stolen, and the classic everything done wrong. Keys to one of the other cars is in the car that got stolen. Criminals find those keys almost immediately.
Oh yeah.
Right. While him and his wife are on the phone talking to the police about the car being stolen, their car pulls back up, and the guys get out and jump in the other car and drive off with it too. Okay. So he's complaining to me about this, and they have tracking on their cars, but this, and I don't know what system they have, but it doesn't like live track. Like when the car stops, it'll ping. And I don't know what the deal is with that, but he's telling me about this, and I'm like, well, let's go fucking get him. And he's like, what? And I go, let's go find him. And I just put it out on our Signal channel for all of our surveillance grads. Hey, who wants to play tonight? Like 14 people probably showed up.
Of course, right?
Oh yeah, we locked that place down.
We're in the middle of dinner. Screw this, I'm gone.
Yeah. Now some of the guys shouldn't have been there. That was my mistake, is letting some of the guys that weren't taking it serious enough be there, because this was an actual live operation.
Oh yeah, it wasn't play. Yeah,
this is not play, and you can scare people enough that they might whip out guns and start shooting at you, right? And so you don't want to, you want to be covert, right? You do not want to show your hand. And so we made a few mistakes, but it's all right. We did end up putting a lot of pressure on the guys that had the cars. Mm-hmm. We could not get law enforcement. You just couldn't get law enforcement response in time before they'd move, right? But the next morning, we got the cars. Both cars got recovered the next day.
Okay. Well,
and all the bad guys got arrested. So it did all work out in the long run, as well as it could have worked out. but yeah, we went out with a big team of dudes and a bunch of cars and locked it down. We found them and we put it on them, so
Nice.
it was fun. A good time.
Nice.
Yeah.
The Adventures of Greg.
Yeah. So you guys need to build your core out there too. And guys want to come back a second time because once again, they'll want to evolve to be able to like be one up and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You'll see that one time is like, okay, I got the basics, but man, I'd like to do this again. Right. So just like shooting classes, no different than shooting classes.
Yeah. I can see I know you're probably going to say no big deal, but the biggest hurdle for me is it's a coast thing. It's going to be the endeavor to get your butt here.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We'll get there.
We'll make it work.
We'll all fly out I'll have somebody with me too. So we'll come out, two of us, and yeah, it's a great class. You guys will love it.
I like it. Yeah. I like it.
It relates to so many things besides surveillance. Once again, just like being able to run your maps, radios, cars, being able to coordinate a team, like it'll turn into other things that are valuable. You guys will have a lot more team trust, right? Once you're out there doing this kind of stuff. And once again, man, with the way the world is, who knows
what be needed?
Who knows what skills you might need, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
One of the things that I'm thinking of an after shoot, you mentioned it earlier, is just in the self-defense realm.
Mm-hmm.
Like just your normal daytime as you're driving to work or you're cruising the mall or you're going shopping.
Yep.
Your awareness is probably going to be a lot more, more spidey sense is going to be up.
Absolutely. And you can purposely introduce counter surveillance into your routine.
Oh yeah.
You can learn about how routes work and learn about how stops work, and you can just make them part of your routine. That's what they should be. That's what a spy would just build all that into their routine. It would just look normal. It would be normal. But it would be covering them all the time and giving them feedback all the time about what's going on. And then also, to go back to your point about every day, you can just pick the car in front of you and pretend you're following it. And what I mean by that
practice rep.
And just make calls. Just make your radio calls. You don't have to even have a radio. You can just verbalize the calls. And when that guy turns, you don't have to follow him and be a weirdo. You just pretend to hand him off.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? You just pretend
to hand him off.
And now you're getting reps and you're getting really, really good at it.
Yeah, I like it.
That's fun too. Keeps you engaged, keeps your brain turned on,
So Greg, if people want to find out more about you and what you're doing and what you're up to with the online stuff and any other training you're doing, how can they find you? Where do they want to go?
Insightstraining.com is our live instruction, and insightstraining.net is the online instruction. So
okay, cool.
Either one of those, check us out. And if you're in Washington State or you want to travel to Washington State, insightstraining.com. And if you're interested in online training, the .net.
Cool. I like it. So let's see. I think I got all my questions answered. Ed was, he's back here nodding along. So, Greg, thanks, for the idea about doing this. I've got a ton of people that I should be talking to, and every time I think about this, I'm like, oh yeah, why not? Because when you threw that idea, I'm like, well, duh. What was I thinking? But everybody watching, get a hold of, get on Greg's website, go check out what they're doing. Again, I'm not sucking up to Greg. This is real. These guys will teach you a lot. I learned so much. Like I was just getting into the defensive pistol craft stuff when I discovered the GDH and Greg and the gang. And it was like a light year jump after a few classes, between that intermediate and then, oh my God, it was fun. And I just learned so much, and like I was just speeding. I was full throttle for about 3 years here, and look where I am now. I'm delivering a lot of that info. Yeah. So I still, some of the stuff I learned in the intensive with breaking down things so tiny. I still use that almost every time I'm teaching because I find it just reaches people.
Absolutely.
So, Greg, in all honesty, thank you for doing what you did for me and the people that I knew, and then, for keep doing it. It's, this is, and we get that too, so this is something that's much needed, obviously. But for everybody watching, don't forget, like the video, subscribe below, hit that notification button. And Greg, thanks for joining us. And everybody else, thanks for checking in.
Thank you.